Welcome to Thursday. It's practically the end of the week. It's like Christmas Eve today. We've got college football playoff home game at Notre Dame Stadium coming up tomorrow. But first, we've got we in, we out questions submitted by subscribers on today's show. He's Jesse Stiers. I'm Sean Stiers. Hope you're having a great day. Maybe you're driving down the road, getting ready, coming to South Bend. Tom said he's getting ready to go. He said that he's already in game day mode. The car's packed, winter clothes laid out. Got his Band of the Fighting Irish CD in the car, driving from Chicago to exit 77.
That's not a bad drive.
Even got a pack of Marlboro Reds in the supposed crush-proof box to stomp on Kurt Signetti's symbol. It's 106 miles to South Bend. Got a half a pack of cigarettes. It's dark, and we're wearing sunglasses. Hit it, baby. Get on down the road. You probably don't get the Blues Brothers reference. Joe already pulling into Elkhart. Well, welcome to the area. Sorry that it's Elkhart, but I'm sure that you had to make do with your hotel room. You might bump your volume up just a tad, by the way, Jess. We're actually going to split this show up. Speaking of driving from or into South Bend, Jesse is coming in tonight from Cleveland, so Jesse's got we in, we out. Vincenzo is going to grace us with his presence here at the end of this hour to join us for rapid fire. So we got a lot to go. Let's just jump right into this. I don't want to waste any time here, Jesse. We in or we out on Notre Dame's chances of making it to the championship game. They're over 60% if they beat IU.
So after that, you got to win two more games. Likely would be Georgia, you'd have Georgia first, and then after that, it would become a question. I don't know if it'd be 60%, so I'd be out on that. I think it'd be closer to like 30 or 40%.
Yeah, like if we're splitting hairs and we do like what the real odds are and stuff like that, I don't think it's quite 60%. But hey, I mean, I like where his head's at. He's keeping it positive. He's feeling good. I like the matchup with Georgia. I would like the matchup with Georgia this time around better than any of the previous times Notre Dame has taken on Georgia. Paulie is so ready for some freaking football. I think a lot of people are. I'm curious to see just how many IBers end up here in town this weekend. We need some kind of roll call on this whole thing because it feels like there's a mass influx of IBers heading into town for this game.
I know I'll be on campus no later than 3 p.m.
I know you will. You count as an IBer as well. Okay, we got a slew from DK.
I hope he's here.
I think he is. I think I saw him earlier. If he's not, then starting with we in, we out. Indiana will give up a season-high rushing yards. 137 against Charlotte is the most that Indiana has allowed this season. Will they give up a season high?
Have to, especially if Notre Dame wants to win. I believe that that's the rest of it. If you don't get over 137, you're not winning this game as Notre Dame. So because I think Notre Dame wins, I have to be in on that one.
I do believe Notre Dame will win. I went and I was trying, splitting up, trying to see, is there some, numerical, if you take out the group of five, an FCS game, that Indiana played, they're still giving, only allowing, 70 plus rushing yards per game. But it is Charlotte at 137 and then Washington and Ohio State with 116 and 115 net rushing yards, in those games that they've allowed this season. It's the matchup everybody's looking at, right? Vince has brought this up a couple of times. IU people are saying, well, all you have to do is shut down the rushing game. Yeah, the rushing game for Notre Dame, that's
three people
running for 250 yards per game. And
even think every team says that?
Right. And even if you throw out the group of five games, Notre Dame's still running for over 220 yards per game against Power Five. And that's exactly right. I mean, has Riley Leonard, because again, looking at nationally kind of how people are talking about this, has Riley Leonard been a consistent passer? No, but it's not like he's just thrown the ball all over the yard. In spots, in key spots, he's shown that he can make throws. He's going to have to show that he can do that. But I think that those things play off each other. And, like even go back to the Texas A&M game as an example, right? And, statistically, Texas A&M doesn't stack up, with where Indiana is. But at the same time, Notre Dame ran for almost 200 yards against Texas A&M. And I think that their front seven is every bit as good as what Indiana's is. And, again, if all you're doing is looking at stats, okay, I do feel like Texas A&M has played a tougher schedule than Indiana has. So, yeah, I think Notre Dame will hit at least 150 yards in this game on the ground, at least.
Like I told you on Tuesday's show, like I hope I like Notre Dame's run game is so multidimensional. It's not like you can just take one aspect away. It's really kind of, to be honest with you, it's kind of like Navy or Army in the sense of a triple option of different guys that can hit you, different schemes that can hit you. And I think, like I said on Tuesday, I really think they're going to take advantage of kind of those perimeter off tackle type runs this weekend.
I don't disagree with that. Irish Gordianot says anybody staying in Elkhart should stop by Yakida Brewing Company, #1 rated pizza in Indiana, some of the best craft beer around. I have to agree with that. I think their pizza is good. I'm surprised at how highly rated the pizza is. I'm not saying it's bad by any means. It's good, but great craft beer over at Yakida in downtown Elkhart. That's one of the spots that I would definitely recommend over there. Big 12 refs will be the best crew that we've seen all year. In or out on that?
I'll get on that because I feel like they don't have like a natural bias. And I'm just kind of like making it up in my head as rationale basically. But I just feel like it's good not to have ACC refs. It's good not to have Big 10 refs. So like if you're looking at it, I feel like the Big 12 is kind of in the middle there. So I feel good about it.
Might want to check that microphone, that connection that you plugged in. It's kind of doing what it was doing the other night. So I'll be out. I just, maybe slightly in. I don't know, like toe in the water in. They might be slightly better. I know ACC officials have not been that great this year, but just in general, officiating is just lagging across the board in college football and really across most sports because of, we've talked about this because of how the whole trickle down works. Some of the best officials in the game have retired in recent years, like specifically in the NFL. And when that happens, you get the best guys from college moving into the NFL ranks. And, so you lose some of the better officials there. And, like really, when you look across the board at like the guys, the TV rules analysts and stuff like that, most of those guys aren't that old, so like they still had a lot of potential, officiating in front of them, and they've moved on, and there's just a shortage of officials across the board. I mean, we've seen it at the high school ranks. You see it even more at that level. So maybe they're slightly better. I haven't watched a ton of Big 12 football this year, but I guess we can all hope. Right. In or out that Jaden Osbury will lead the linebackers in tackles for the third game in a row? I will be in on this because of the fact that Indiana throws the ball so much, and like they have pretty good balance. They're not an elite rushing team like Notre Dame. It's not that they won't run the football, but I think that Osbury will just have, like, because he'll be out there, because of the fact that you don't have Kingston Viliamu Asa, that naturally means that he's going to be out there more. And I just feel like, he'll have a chance to make some tackles in space, like the USC game a couple of weeks, or I guess it's been almost not quite a month ago, but I think he had 4 solo tackles in that game. The Army game, a little bit different because of the kind of option attack and all that. But I'll say that Osbury ends up right up there at the top. What do you think, Jess?
I think the senior shows up, and I'm going to go with Jack Kaiser.
Going Kaiser. Okay. In or out on Mitchell Evans being the leading receiver Friday night?
I think it's either him or Jeremiah Love, to be honest with you. So I'll go Evans just because of some of that stuff we were talking about on Tuesday, a lot of underneath, kind of flats over the middle of the field. And I feel like Evans is a perfect guy for that. So he can use his body to really like box out in that kind of zone or, that we're expecting kind of IU to run. So I think that makes the most sense.
I think so as well. It's so hard to gauge, who it's going to be from a wide receiver standpoint and exactly what that's going to look like because it just there hasn't been much consistency game in and game out. And because of that stuff that we were talking, like you said, it feels like Mitchell Evans has come on at the end of the season and combined that with the way Indiana runs its defense. Like if they play as much two deep zone as they have shown that they play throughout the season, there are going to be some really easy layups, quite frankly, for Riley Leonard to be able to hit, a guy like Mitchell Evans and or Eli Raridan. But I think that Evans will be up there at the top. So I'll be in on this. Sean wants to know if we know how long KVA is out. We talked about this a little bit yesterday. We saw when we went to that practice, we got to see the first 5 periods of practice Monday morning. Kingston Viliamu Asa was not in uniform. He was not practicing with the team. He had like some sweats and shorts and a knee brace, on that knee. So he's not doing anything with the team right now. So, I mean, they have not given us any kind of timeline, but I would not hold your breath on him being able to get back during this playoff run, just based on what we saw the other day and just the fact that he is listed out. That doesn't mean that he won't be, but I just would not hold your breath, right? For right now. Maybe that gets updated and, he's feeling better within a week or two. That's something that we can check on next week, though. I'm amped up, by the way. I had an extra coffee this afternoon, man, and I'm just bouncing right now. I don't know if
I can't drink coffee. I don't know if I'm one of the very few people who doesn't drink much coffee.
We in or we out? I know you don't. We in or we out? Notre Dame dominates the middle 8, scoring 17 plus points to Indiana's 4 or less. So the middle 8, last 4 minutes of the first half, first 4 minutes of the second half. What do you think about that, Jess? 17 plus points to Indiana's 7 or less.
I feel like that's a pretty big margin. I do think Notre Dame will dominate the middle 8. I think that's where they make their bread and butter. But that's a lot to ask in a playoff game. I'd be more on board with like the 10-point range or max maybe 14-point, but I guess that's where I'm at. So I'll be out on the first one.
Yeah, I'm out just because of how much scoring 17 plus points. I would say maybe 2 touchdowns. I just do I think Notre Dame is going to win this game? Yes, but I also think this is going to be a fairly tight game throughout most of the game. Like the separation I expect to come in the fourth quarter, So I'm going to be out on this. I don't think Indiana, will like the Indiana part I would be in on, but I think like you said, it's the Notre Dame 17 plus that I've got to be out on. But I do think that they will win that part of the game because they have been very good at that. In or out, Notre Dame has at least 2 fourth down stops. Could be 4th and goal or other.
So this is an interesting question because I don't as bold as Cignetti talks. I don't really think his coaching, like in-game coaching style, is that bold, right? Like I think he's kind of like a more, and I think that goes towards where his team is at because I don't think they can afford. Like if they go for it, don't get it, and then Notre Dame keeps compiling scores, like that's IU's worst nightmare, right? So I think there's more advantage for IU to play the field position in a lot of aspects, especially dependent on what the weather is really doing tomorrow night. But if they get down, late in the game, then of course I think Notre Dame could get these kind of stops. So like I think this is a really tough question, I guess is what I'm getting at. And 2 is a good number as well. So I think I'm going to say, to be honest with you, I'm going to be on I'm going on the fence on this one. I think it is going to be 2. I can't go under or below, but I think they do go for 2.
This is going to be interesting to me because Kurt Signetti obviously has playoff experience, like coaching James Madison when they were still in the FCS. So he's
Right.
got coaching postseason experience is what I'm trying to say. Like he's been in some of these playoff situations. But at the same time, this is a much more high profile type situation. So is it like, well, I've been in those, kind of like Brian Kelly, is it like I've been in those situations? So, like I've cut my teeth, I'm used to it, it automatically transfers over? Or does Kurt Signetti sort of feel some of that pressure in a big game setting against Notre Dame? Even though, I'm sure he's downplaying Notre Dame and, everything else, all week to his team, we're better. And, I mean, you expect him to be saying that. I feel like Indiana is not a very good fourth down team. Notre Dame, like from an offensive standpoint, is a much better fourth down team. So when Indiana has gone for it, they haven't had a ton of success. But the question is, does Signetti sort of feel pushed into something because of the stage, because of the setting and that kind of stuff? So I will be in and say, yes, Notre Dame has at least a pair of fourth down stops against Indiana.
To kind of go off what you're saying, that's what makes it tough because it's a fine line for him in this game of getting aggressive, not being aggressive enough. You know what I mean? Like it has to – that's going to be, I think, one of the more tougher things for him to manage throughout that game is how aggressive does he want to get? And I think it's going to change throughout the game, to be honest with you.
Right. And, again, like as I've said for, the last 2 weeks, I think you're going to, like Notre Dame has got to this stage before 3 times, BCS championship game twice in the playoffs. And the difference in the athletes on the rosters that, that Notre Dame has faced has become obvious. And I think that Kurt Signetti and Indiana are going to see that in this game. I think that honestly, they're going to be kind of like a lot of other teams, probably, not to the extent of Army or Navy, because there's a huge, gap in the level of talent there. But I feel like they're going to, they're going to be struck by the difference in speed, I think, that Notre Dame has in comparison to probably what they think Notre Dame has. That would be my guess.
Yeah, again, I agree with that completely.
I think when you get hit with that a little bit, it forces you into, trying to sort of be bolder and, push the limits and those kind of things. Betting the over on a made-up sack total of 3.5, in or out on that. So in other words, would you go over 3.5 sacks for Notre Dame against Curtis Rourke?
He's immobile. Offensive line is pretty solid, though. I think 3.5 is a bit high, so cautiously I'd be out on it. I'd be under.
I'm going to go over because he's only been sacked 17 times this season, but 9 of those 17 sacks have come against Ohio State, 5, and Michigan, 4. So 9 sacks in those 2 games total. And I think with the return of Howard Cross, I think Notre Dame gets at least 4 sacks against this guy, especially if Notre Dame does have a lead in the fourth quarter. And then, it just turns into a situation where things are really good for the Fighting Irish. And I think you're going to see, like with Cross and Mills playing together, I think you're going to see some bull rush to the quarterback type stuff. I think it's going to play. I think it's going to play pretty well.
I mean, Al Golden isn't going to sit back either. He's going to have designed 5-man pressures.
It's funny because I've heard some national people say, well, Al Golden really doesn't pressure that much.
Oof.
What? What team have you been watching, man? Seriously? Okay. In or out, Notre Dame doubles up. IU's average rushing yards of 75 per game for 150 or more. It's actually 70.1, but yeah, I think we're both in on this, right?
Yeah.
In or out on all black uniforms for the Irish against Georgia in the quarterfinals.
Ow, I did my best impersonation today. The Marcus Freeman all black look.
I noticed that. I am out as well, even though my sources say, black could be the way. Hilarious after they finally announced that last night, after all this, drama that was going on.
All the smoke and the smoke and mirrors.
Yep. In or out, Notre Dame Stadium will be rocking for the majority of the game.
That's a big in. I know I will be. I don't plan to sit, especially I think being up and moving is going to help combat the cold the most. So I hope everyone else gets that message as well. And then, at my rally towel, I'll be, swinging the crap out of that thing.
All right. I'm going to be in, man. Like, I think people are going to want to be rocking just to stay warm out there, right? Like, you're going to have to keep it moving,
right,
to stay warm. Like, that's the only thing that might quiet it down. It's going to be interesting, like, to see. Vince and I were talking about this yesterday. Notre Dame fans are going to have the yellow rally towels, which Vince, of course, is down on because he's grumpy old man. But IU fans are going to have white rally towels. So it's going to be pretty obvious who's who out there, whether you're wearing, red or green or whatever it happens to be with your clothes. All right. More from Loincloth Josh. Notre Dame wide receiver core accounts for 150 yards in or out on that.
Wide receiver core? No. I'd be out on that. If you gave me the tight ends, I'd be in on it, but I got to be out since it says wide receiver core.
I agree as well. And again, it's so hard to peg exactly what a passing game is going to look like for Riley Leonard and this team. Because IU is so good against the run, again, it's not like Riley Leonard can't throw. The guy has had, a handful of 300-yard games in his career. Now, he hasn't had one at Notre Dame yet, but the guy has shown that he can throw the football. It's just a matter of, how it looks sometimes, how he goes about getting it. And I don't think the receipt, like, I think the whole, like, you were saying maybe Jeremiah Love ends up being the leading receiver. I went in on Mitchell Evans being the leading receiver. So I think at the very least, Mitchell Evans is going to account for a good chunk of it. So I've got to be out on the receiving core getting that amount.
The only way this happens is if they hit like a big chunk, like 80-yard play.
Yeah, exactly. And that could be like Jeremiah Love on a screen pass, or but again, I like the receivers. I don't see the receivers have a really good chance of getting there, unless maybe Harrison, maybe Faison,
Mitchell.
Yeah. In or out on a Jeremiah Love hurdle?
Big out, and I think they're going to tell him not to hurdle as well.
I'm out as well. I think that he stays on the ground and just lowers the boom. Like when he was in that Out of Pocket podcast with RG3, like he's talked about how he can, just truck you if he wants to. And I think we see more trucking from Jeremiah Love. I think we see more going through him than going over him.
In cold temps, you do not want a running back trying to go through you. It is not fun. Those guys are very low center of gravity, very, and especially there was this guy in high school I hated tackling. He was just very fast in the helmet down, kind of spear you in the chest plate is what he was almost doing every time. And, got the job done, but like it was basically a war the entire game.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I expect Jeremiah Love to do.
I agree. And call his shot when he's going to block for Riley Leonard, I guess, as well. In or out on a Christian Gray interception?
I went out on this because I have to hold my prediction of an Xavier Watts interception.
Xavier Watts, by the way, consensus All-American today. Did you see that news?
No, but he wasn't even a finalist for the Thorpe, right? But he was an All-American consensus safety.
Well, because, the Thorpe is like the
best
the individual award.
Right.
That is given. Let me So Watts named a consensus All-American. Let's see, Notre Dame football team, PR team. He is the 111th consensus All-American in Notre Dame history. One of just 17 players all time to be a two-time consensus honoree, the first since 1993. One of just two repeat consensus All-Americans in the FBS in 2024.
I'm going to give you some extra credit or a bonus on this one. I think Notre Dame's going to get 2 interceptions.
Okay.
One from a safety, and I'm calling my shot with Watts. And I think another interception is going to be because, again, they throw a lot of quick passes. I think it's going to be one of those that he throws in a tight lane. It kind of pops up in the air. I think you're going to get a linebacker interception as well. That's my
bold linebacker interception. Okay. Yes. So you're going safety linebacker as opposed to corner.
Yeah. Again, because I think a lot of those tight, quick throws, I think one's going to kind of pop up in the air, and that's prime kind of linebacker territory. And I think Notre Dame's linebackers are great too. You know, like we talked about their athleticism and their plays well. They're going to get underneath one of those kind of fly balls and get an interception.
I'm going to be in on a Christian Gray interception because I think they're going to try to pick on him a little bit early. And I think that I think he makes them pay with it, to be quite honest. So I'll go in. But that also doesn't mean that, you know, one of those other guys like you're talking about might not have an interception. Now, Rourke doesn't throw a lot of interceptions. I mean, he's only got 4 this year, you know, but Caleb Williams last year never had a multi-interception game before taking on Notre Dame. So there is that. Irish start fast and set a tone up 14 in the first quarter. Are you in or out on that?
I'm going to say out. Notre Dame has a lot of methodical drives, I think, to start the game. And I think that's if they get one of those kind of at the midway corner and midpoint of the quarter. And I think IU runs a similar offense as well. And I think we've seen Notre Dame's defense kind of struggle the most early on in the game. And I wouldn't be surprised if that holds true to a degree, right? Because, again, there's going to be stuff that IU hasn't shown that they're going to run. There's going to be stuff that Notre Dame hasn't shown that they're going to run. It's just the nature of the beast. So I think it's going to be naturally kind of close, to be honest with you, in the beginning. And both teams, their offenses aren't predicated around the big home run play. Like they get a lot of chunk, yards down the field. So
grind it up. Yep. That's exactly right. And so I've got to be out on it as well. Unless, some big momentum shifting play happens early on, like Tyree fumbling, the opening kickoff and that kind of stuff, like in the Virginia game. So, we obviously can't predict that kind of stuff, but just based on the way things have played out most of the time. Yeah, I agree with what like Indy Sailor is saying and some other people are saying, they've typically started a little bit slow. It's a little bit more of a feeling out process. So I'm going to go out on that. In or out on the Irish being down at halftime?
I think there's no way I can be in on this one. So I can't even say that out loud. I'll be out.
I've got to be out as well. I don't think they'll be down at the half. The game covers the over.
Have you seen their most recent over?
52.5 is what I saw earlier today.
So that gives you like 26 per team, 4 touchdowns per team. I think Notre Dame gets close to the 30 range, but I don't think IU is going to get close to the 30 range. I see it being like maybe, like 28, 20, 28, 17 kind of ballpark. And I don't think you're getting quite to 53. So
yep.
I'm going to be out on the over.
That's the range I've got as well. And especially if it is cold and snowing and everything else, like the snow has actually kind of dissipated from the forecast the last I saw. So I don't know how much of that, but it's still going to be low 30s in the 20s out there. Who knows, what the wind is going to be like. So I think points are going to be at a pretty good premium in this game. And I agree with like the range that you're talking about. I think we're talking about 45 to 48 points is the maximum that I would say on this game. So I'm out on the over. In or out, the university intentionally trolled us on the black uniforms. Trotting out Marcus Freeman in a black hoodie is hilarious in retrospect. Brilliant. In or out.
Yes. I'm going to try not to be mean with this one, but like I have to be big out on this. I think that I think that Notre Dame fans try to troll themselves, honestly, and it's
got in your head.
Yeah, I just
your head got stuck in a black blender is what happened here.
There was a lot of people all referencing the not very credible source who also, same person who said he knew all the stuff that was happening at the end of last season in terms of coaching in and outs and transfer portal and all these where these guys are going and stuff. And so it's just, I think that fans were looking to be excited about something and kind of fell into the troll trap a little bit themselves.
Outbound, I'm not sure what you're talking about here. Forgot this is a pre-recorded show.
Not today.
Not today, baby. That's right. I think we're reacting to people in real time. Like, unless, did Outbound put something in there that maybe I didn't see? Is that what he's referencing on
Potentially.
That? Was there something in there earlier that I missed that he wanted us to see? I'm kind of
you're also back. Live scrolling these questions.
Yeah. There's a lot of activity in the chat. I am starring up, some of these comments. We got, we're getting through the stuff that all the subscribers put up on the new Champions Lounge first, including Joe, who's over in Elkhart. In or out, the Notre Dame defense has 3+ sacks on IU. But I think we did 3.5 earlier. This is an easy over for me.
I'll be in on 3.
Okay.
Out on a blocked punt.
You're out on a block punt. Notre Dame is the best special teams unit in the nation. IU, little shaky, maybe a weakness. Obviously, it came into play. It wasn't a block, but it came into play against Ohio State. I think maybe we're reading too much into that, though.
Let me spin this question.
Okay.
What do you have more confidence in, a blocked punt or a fake punt ran by Notre Dame?
Ooh. Fake.
See, but I feel like Signetti's got to have it drilled in them that a fake could be imminent. I don't know if they'll have the numbers that they want. I don't even know if IU will come out and they'll be in punt safe the whole game. I bet that's the only thing I'm teeing on. But if I had to pick one way or the other, I'm going to fake punt as well. It's like in Marcus Freeman's DNA now.
Yes, I think you're right about that.
I stumped myself with my own question.
But it's not just, about being in punt safe. It's also about specific looks that their punt return. So you can try to be in punt safe sometimes, but if they have shown that and they show a certain look, there are still ways
schematically
that you could, if Marty Biaggi has a specific kind of play, there's still a way you can attack that. If basically Indiana is just sitting there, with no real rush, kind of playing, standing at the line of scrimmage, anticipating. There's still ways you can attack that, with some misdirection and those kind of things, like Biaggi has, the perfect one, as an example was the one against Virginia that ended up being called back. Now, obviously they're not going to go with that same formation again, but there's still potentially, if they can dial, if they can dial up the same type of concept, I think you could attack a safe, I think you could attack that.
I like what Indy Sailor is saying, a fake field goal potentially with, because of Jeter's struggles and if it's kind of wet out there. I like that idea too. Listen,
Buckner back there holding again.
Yeah, I think that Notre Dame Biaggi has had some good time off. I definitely think there are fakes in place. It's just a matter of will they get the look that they want to run it.
Right. And that's going to be the thing. And they'll find that, hopefully you don't have to punt too much or, but you can kind of find that out, on the, the first punt, the second punt, kind of how they're lined up. And if they give you that same look.
If I'm at you, I'm running a different punt coverage every time.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of chess that I think is going to be played out there. In or out, Notre Dame turnover margin against IU is 3-1 in their favor.
I don't think Notre Dame's going to turn the ball over. And I think that they'll at least get, well, not at least. I'm banking on them getting 2 turnovers. So I'll go 2-0. Well, I mean, that does boil down to basically 2-0. So yeah, I'll be in on that.
Well, so is 3-1 the same as 2-0?
I mean, you're still +2,
right? But the multiplier is 3, right? Like you're the math person. So I guess all I'm saying is IU doesn't turn the ball over a lot. I think they've only had one game where they've had multiple turnovers, where they've actually coughed it up in the same game. One game, maybe 2. So I'm going to go out. I think that, because again, they're a well-coached team. They're disciplined as well. The X factor in this whole thing is, especially if there are elements at play, just simply who takes, who's going to take better care of the football, because they're 2 really good teams at taking care of the football. They're 2 of the elite teams in the nation in turnover margin. Notre Dame is number 2 in the nation. IU's right behind them. Interestingly, Signetti's old team, James Madison, leads the nation in turnover margin.
Do 4th down stops count as a turnover?
No. Okay. Like actually turning the, but that's just, give it up on downs, basically.
Okay.
So
I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah. Like literal, takeaways.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go out. I think that, Notre Dame has a really good chance maybe to be +1, but this could easily be a game where neither team turns the ball over. And if you turn it over in your own territory,
right.
Because both teams are so good, like that could be a huge factor in this game. That was going back to the Big 12 comment, Big 12 officiating comment. We in or we out? Notre Dame's defensive line returns to form after the lackluster USC game and gets pressure on Rourke, allowing Golden to not have to bring extra rushers, especially with Howard Cross back. Are you in or out on that, Mr. Defense?
So I'll be in on this, but lackluster, they still got some pressure. I think they'll get more pressure. The pressure will be better. I think having Howard Cross back obviously helps something like that. But you got to remember too, I use quick offense, ball in, out, right? Like that's what helps keep the sack numbers down. That helps what keeps, Rourke up on his feet because he's not the most mobile guy. So, I would look at maybe more like hurries, as well, something to kind of take into factor because of how quick they're going to try to get the ball out. But I do think he's going to bring extra rushers regardless, though, 5-6 man stunts just to kind of, get Rourke not seeing things. I think that's what got Caleb Williams so off guard against Notre Dame is when you're bringing pressure from all different ways and then you're disguising coverage. It's like at some point he's got to be like, I don't know where this is coming from and who's going to be where, right? So that's kind of more what I'm looking at is just kind of creating chaos, 5-man chaos back there and at least getting him to hurry some throws.
No, I mean, I agree with a lot of that because like you said, especially like if you looked at the Indiana's first drive against Ohio State, how they moved the ball downfield, all those short, quick passes, just getting it out. But if Notre Dame can, play with the lead, that alters things. But the other thing is like the cross factor is the crux of this question to me. So that's why I'm going to be in on this. Golden is still going to bring pressures. And as you said, the more you can try to confuse Rourke, the better. I mean, he's a 6th-year quarterback, so he's been around the block, and again, he's only been sacked 17 times. But again, going back to 9 of them combined against Ohio State and Michigan. I just look at, if your pressure has to come from the edges, that's where, going up against this kind of pass game that they're going to see, that's where you get into some more trouble. But
right.
When you've got Cross and Mills together,
best duo in the country.
Yeah, they can destruct and come up the middle and move that pocket into Rourke's face. That's where you can put him into, you can make him a heck of a lot more uncomfortable that way. And the fact that those 2 combined have 10.5 sacks this season, but in the 3 games that Cross was out, Mills only had a half a sack in that absence, so basically, as Mills go, as Cross goes, Mills, you're like when those 2 are together, that's when you're going to really see that interior at their most effective. And the pass rush doesn't have to just come from the outside. So because of the cross factor, I'm going to be in on this. But I agree with what you're saying about the short pass game. That does negate some of that pass rush. But again, if you can get it up the middle in his face, that's where you can really cause some damage against a guy like this. In or out, Love and Price have 180-plus yards combined and 3 touchdowns accounted for between them against the Hoosiers.
just a little steep, little rich for my blood. I like 2 and like 150 combined to be safe. So, I mean, I think the only thing that's holding me back is what Riley Leonard does. And I've said before, I think he's got to be kind of a big, figure in this game, especially if they want to hit some of those perimeter runs I was talking about, getting him on the edge. So just because I think Riley Leonard's going to have himself a decent game too on the ground, probably like 60, 70 yards, 80 and a touchdown, I think I have to be out on those numbers by just a little bit.
If you gave me 2 of the 3, Love, Price, Leonard, I would go in on this. Obviously, adding the quarterback to this, greatly increases your odds because you're talking about 3 touchdowns accounted for, and a quarterback obviously can either run for 1 or throw for 1. And I'm not even including the passing yards in this. If you gave me 2 out of 3, I'd probably be in, but just Love and Price, I will probably have to be out on this.
Respectively.
Yes. We in or are we out? No less than 5 receivers touched the ball Friday for Notre Dame, not counting running backs. Big in for me. They spread the ball all over the place.
Yep. I agree.
In or out, the game will play out similarly to the Ohio State IU game, with IU keeping it close in the first half before Notre Dame pulls ahead for a 2+ score win.
No offense, but I feel like these ones get a little exhausting sometimes because it's like I just want them to win. I don't care if it's they start early, they start late, they get hot in the middle. I just care about winning the game. If it's by 1 point, it's by 20 points. I do think it starts a little bit slower because of what we were talking about earlier. I think Notre Dame puts together methodical drives. I think Notre Dame's defense starts out a little bit slower compared to how they finish the game. IU's going to have methodical drives. So I think when you're going to start to see separation is really kind of coming out of the second half.
Yeah, I'm in. I think it's going to be a close game in the first half, and Notre Dame will start to separate. The cream will rise to the top, I think, in the second half. That's how I think that it's going to go for Notre Dame. In or out, this will be the most underrated stadium atmosphere for the first round, and IU will feel it.
I think so. I think the weather is going to be great. I think the environment's going to be great. I love a nighttime kickoff. I mean, this game's probably not going to end till close to midnight when it's all said and done. It's under the lights, first game of the playoffs. I think when I think of how nuts the stadium is going to be, I'm going to think back to when we used to live on Sterling Drive, and I could hear the stadium when they would play USC sometimes. Mm-hmm. That's the kind of environment I think it's going to be.
A couple miles from campus. Yep.
Friday night. Yeah. So that's what I think it's just going to be absolutely electric.
I think so too. The best atmospheres that they've had have been night games. I mean, it was a great atmosphere for Florida State, and it was a dud of a game. And I think we all think that this is going to be a lot more competitive. So, excuse me, I will go in on it. Joe says in or out, tired of talking about the game. Bring it on. I mean, we've got one less day, Joe. I mean, come on. It's a Friday game.
26 hours.
I know. That's right. Jesse, I don't even want to know what you're going to look like 24 hours from now.
No, I got to be on good terms for the game. You got to be able to.
Got to pace yourself.
Right.
In or out, after reading Riley Leonard's letter, I bet $1,000 on Notre Dame to cover the spread. We'll do the same thing in every playoff game we play this year. Am I drinking Kool-Aid, or are you?
Is the spread 7.5 or 6.5?
7.5 was the last one that I saw.
I'm not. I'm more. You could probably if the spread is 7.5 at like -120, you could probably get 6.5 at like -160. That's where I feel the most comfortable. That last 1 point, because I could see them winning by a touchdown, but like it could be just a touchdown. So I would be in if this question said 6.5 on the first cover. I'm not betting $1,000. No. But I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. I'm willing to ride that spread train, basically.
Yeah. I've just got to be way out on this. Talk is cheap. Now, Riley Leonard has largely said and done all the right things. And this is not a knock on him. Honestly, like I almost worry about watching the way he's played at home sometimes, like that he's like comes into this thing too amped up and too fired up and ready to go. So, it was a great. Did you read his thing in the Players Tribune?
No, I should though.
Check it out when you get a chance. Not when you're driving here tonight, but check it out when you get a chance. I mean, it's there's some great stuff in there, but I'm just not going to go too far on that kind of stuff. Like, especially if you're literally talking about $1,000. So I can't encourage that, man. Can't encourage that at all.
Can't do that,
especially if you're on a budget. In or out, Friday and Saturday's games will go chalk.
Does that mean favorites win?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm out. I think there's at least one upset.
I think so as well. I just don't know what it is. I've picked them all to go chalk. I don't know. I don't know which one to go. So I'm out on them going chalk. I just don't know which upset it's going to be. Largest margin of victory from highest to lowest: Notre Dame, then Penn State, then Texas, then Ohio State. In or out on that?
I think Ohio State, Tennessee will be the closest. Who's Texas playing again?
Clemson.
I think that's a close game. I think Penn State. I think Notre Dame will be the biggest margin of victory. And
really?
Then I think it goes, then I think it goes SMU over Penn State, which is, I know, crazy to say. And then Texas and then Ohio State.
I think I'd put Texas over Clemson at the top. And then I would put Penn State next, and then Notre Dame, and then Ohio State, Tennessee. Gordy not thinks SMU beats Penn State. I don't know, man. That Penn State defense, I just can't fall too in love with what I saw from SMU against Clemson. I think that's what most of us are like. We're basing it on Clemson and what they've done against a pretty average ACC schedule over the course of the season. And they've got to go into the cold weather and the whole thing. I'm not saying it won't happen, but that's the one. I think that's the one a lot of people are looking at, but I can't go there. Highest scoring game, Penn State, SMU. In or out on that?
I'm in on that. In.
So you do think I don't think SMU is going to be that successful against Penn State's defense. I just don't. So I'm out. Lowest scoring game, Ohio State, Tennessee. I am definitely in on that.
Yes, same.
Because I think that's going to be very close and pretty low scoring. Two really evenly matched teams in that one. In or out, this is the most important game ever played at Notre Dame Stadium.
Has to be in. First college game in the expanded playoff format. First postseason game at Notre Dame. Largest implications in the last, I guess they were in a national championship, but that wasn't at obviously Notre Dame. So just the implications. The postseason games have never been played at home venues, so I have to be in on this.
I mean, Joe just said Miami 88. I mean, the two standards are Miami 88, Miami in 1988, and Florida State in 1993. You had 1 versus 2 team, number 1 versus number 2. But the difference, obviously, is those were regular season games.
Right. These are postseason.
Right. And now we're talking about postseason. So, how do you balance all that? I mean, honestly, now I'm going to say I've got to be out just because those two games, like Notre Dame, like in 93, should have been in the driver's seat for a national championship, but they turned around and lost to Boston College the next week. But at the time, because it was 1 versus 2, they beat Florida State. That was a huge game. 1988, they don't win the national championship. Now, granted, kind of like this, because it's a playoff, you still have to win more games to actually win the championship. But 88, you don't beat Miami, you're not winning the championship. So We'll see how this game plays out tomorrow night. Maybe we feel a little bit differently on Monday. But for now, I'm going to be out on this. In or out, Jadarian Price has more rushing yards than Jeremiah Love against Indiana.
I mean, you have to factor in if he does, take up glancing below, and what that means for his availability, or maybe even like potency afterwards, right? Like how potent he would be potentially kind of banged up. But I think if all holds, health holds, all that stuff, I think I'd be out. I think Jeremiah Love he's just the best athlete on the field, and he's got to be the guy to carry the workload for this team.
I agree. I think that Love ends up with more yards. In or out, Mitchell Evans has the most receiving yards versus IU.
Yes, in. We kind of touched on that.
Yeah, definitely receptions. I will be curious, could they hit a long pass play to one of the slots or something like that? Yeah, but I like Mitchell Evans to collect. I like him to have one of his bigger days of the year against the Hoosiers. In or out on the defense, forcing 2 or more turnovers. I think we're both in on that.
We talked a lot about this one.
I think 2 has got to be my max, just because, again, Indiana takes really, really good care of the football. I'm going to go ahead and mix this one in with another one. Irish for Life 99 saying Indiana has 20% of the fan base. And the question here from the Champions Lounge, Notre Dame Stadium will be 50-50 or 60-40 fan ratio. He says he doesn't care what Bavakwa says. What do you think? What do you think the split ends up being of the fan base?
I think it's going to be around 85-15, worst case 75-25.
I am out on all of those numbers. I said 30% last night. That could end up being a little bit high, but I think 25 to 30% Indiana is where I'm sitting. I just don't think you can discount the fact that, even though this is at Notre Dame Stadium, we're in Indiana and there are Indiana fans everywhere around here, and this is very Indianapolis, Bloomington, it's not that far a drive for any of them. And literally, you've got IU grads all over the place up here. So I think that there's still going to be a pretty good representation of Hoosier fans in the stadium. In or out, Marcus Freeman becomes the first coach to have a statue while active at the university. And before you answer, I'm going to bring in Vince, and I'm going to let him chime in on this.
There he is
as well.
Woo!
How are you, Mr.
Chiming in
Dario?
on? I was not paying attention.
Even with the headphones on,
I was.
He's just sitting there dozing off.
Your voice is just so soothing.
That's what it is.
And I was also going over rapid fire. So I was actually thinking about my answers. But anyway.
Marcus Freeman becomes the first coach to have a statue while still active at the university.
Oh, super out on that. I will hearken back to somebody that you are very close to in Muffet McGraw. And I will say that she is an absolute legend on Notre Dame's campus, and she didn't get her statue until after she was retired. So, right. I mean, and she won, multiple national championships. I don't care if Marcus Freeman wins 3 in a row. They're not going to do anything until after he's done. So
they're not going to do a Philadelphia Eagles and put like the Doug Peterson, Nick Foles statue the next year. Huh?
No, it's
it's not going to be Riley Leonard, Marcus Freeman out there hand in hand.
Yeah,
the statue.
No chance that happens. None. And
I think I agree.
It shouldn't.
Yeah. I think they'd find the money very quickly to build that statue if he wins a national championship. But
no disagreement there.
I think because it's Notre Dame, they do what they've always done. You wait and then you honor them after it's over with.
Right. Like I said, if Muffet didn't get hers until after she retired, and she was so long tenured and had all the success. And if they didn't do hers, they're not going to do Marcus's. Come on.
Any disagreement, Jesse? What do you think?
Nope. I thought Vince gave the perfect answer. I mean, it's the most recent, most successful. And how long did it take Muffet to get hers?
Yeah, right.
In or out, Mitchell Evans and Eli Raridan will be the X factors for the Notre Dame offense.
I like that because I think, I kind of said this a bunch now. I feel like they're going to sit down and into some of that zone over the middle, in the flats. IU plays a lot of cover 2 to cover 4. So if IU doesn't switch things up, then yes, it will be X factors.
The X factor is Riley Leonard.
Ooh,
period.
Okay. I like that.
So,
so you're saying Riley Leonard, like you're saying IU is going to think of him as a running back playing quarterback, and he's going to make them pay for that assessment.
Yes. Look, somebody's got to throw those two the ball.
Yeah.
And I think that Notre Dame's success will be Riley Leonard's success. Like if he has success, they win, period. I mean, that's the definition of an X factor, right? Whatever he does is whatever is going to happen to Notre Dame. So that's why he's the X factor for me.
In or out on Osbury, Bowen, and Snead making big plays.
Snead will have a sack at some point. He'll also miss a crucial tackle at some point. But he'll make a big play. There's no doubt about it. I think Bowen could definitely have a big play because they're going to attempt to stay away from Watts. Probably not successfully. I don't know if I can be in on all three though. So I'm going to be out overall.
I don't know about big plays, but I know they'll make consistent plays. I think IU is going to be a lot on kind of getting the ball out more so to the perimeter. I don't see them having a strong run game. I see Notre Dame kind of also getting out to a lead, which will force IU to throw the ball more, which is, kind of less big plays for your linebackers. So I like what Vince said. I think these guys will bring pressure. I mean, Bowen and Snead and all these guys I think they're going to be most effective in bringing pressure.
Yeah.
And that's where their big plays are going to come from this week.
Yeah, exactly. I think these guys are all going to be a big factor in the game. The linebacking core is going to be a huge factor in the game. Whether they individually make big, like big highlight type plays, I don't know. But at the very least, I think that you're going to see, pressures, from a couple of these guys. And like you said,
and helping clean up tackles, because these guys you're going to stand guys up and the linebackers are going to rally to come
again,
finish tackles off.
A lot more speed on this defense than I think that Indiana might be anticipating. So it's not just a bunch of Midwest plotters, Jesse, we brought Vince in because you've got to get going. You're going to be heading this way so you can go to the game tomorrow. I did want to say this sincerely, since you're both here at the same time and since Christmas is less than a week away, I want to reiterate, I think it was Vince and I were doing the show. Was it Vince and I doing the mailbag last week, or were you with me on the mailbag?
That was me,
Jesse?
When the question got asked about your favorite.
My two, Salty asked me, over all these years, I've done all these different shows, who I liked being on the show with me the most.
Very sentimental.
You're looking at my two favorites, right? In all sincerity, even though I give them both a hard time most of the time.
That's out of love. It comes from a good place.
we're both knuckleheads.
That's right.
That's right.
100%.
I did forget, and of course I kicked myself afterwards because Salty was also asking about guests and stuff like this. Now this has been 20 some years, but I thought about this after the fact. Do you remember when I had Urban Meyer on the old show, Vince?
Whoa, man.
He was still the head coach at Utah.
At Utah.
And Notre Dame had fired Tyrone Willingham, and I had him on. They had a great year. He was like the big candidate. And I asked him, so, are you considering Notre Dame? And he gave me I'll just go no comment on that one.
Well, he was considering it. It just didn't end up turning out that way.
But, that's before Urban Meyer really became Urban Meyer. I forgot we had him on the show. I had Desmond Howard on the show once. And I asked him right off the bat, I said, what would it take for you to say, this is Desmond Howard and I love Notre Dame? And he just laughed with that, that laugh that he's got. And he goes, how much you got? And then when we were wrapping up, he's like, no, let's keep going. I'm having fun. I'm like, I got to let you go. And he wanted to keep. So he was a great guest. And then I also had Woody Page. at the time he was on that. You remember when ESPN did that cold pizza morning show?
Oh my gosh, I do remember that.
So he was on that. Of course, like he's probably become more famous because he's been on Around the Horn, forever on ESPN. But Woody Page on our show called Jay Mariotti a Richard. And another word for Richard. And I said, did you just call Jay Mariotti a Richard? And he goes, yes, I did. So,
wow.
I totally forgot about those three, but those were three great guests from like back in the day when we were doing the old ESPN stuff. Jesse, safe travels, and I will see you later tonight.
You guys take this show into the final sleep. Good luck.
That's right. The final sleep.
See you guys soon.
See you, buddy.
All right. Sounds good. See you.
Feels more like Christmas Eve tonight than it will in about 5 days.
I know. Like, who's going to sleep tonight? Seriously.
I mean, I'm old. I'll sleep. But, like, I'm so excited about tomorrow. The problem is, there's so much to get through first to get to tomorrow night. You know what I mean?
I know.
So, but I'm fired up.
That's what I was just thinking. Like it's 6 o'clock tonight, and the game doesn't start until 8 o'clock tomorrow night.
Seriously, we're 26 hours away from kickoff.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
All right, in or out, this is from Salty. The presence of a vocal and variably obnoxious IU contingent together with the absence of cold intolerant older fans will arouse the presence and volume of the Notre Dame crowd to its highest level in recent memory. The stadium will actually shake. Are you in or out on that?
Well, the stadium's not going to shake. I realize he's probably being, whatever. But I do think it's going to be a good crowd. I think it's going to be a good crowd. I really do. I think it's not just going to be the wine and cheese crowd that everybody is worried about with Notre Dame. I think it's going to be a very, very good crowd. I will say this. I'm glad I'm not sitting in the stands because of the obnoxious IU fans that I have encountered.
Tell you what, man,
the last couple of weeks.
Like, I think people kind of, when we started talking, like after the selections came out, like I think people thought that I was, oh, what are you talking about? How obnoxious can IU fans be?
Oh my gosh.
I think a lot of people have found out over the last couple of weeks.
Has gotten to a crescendo point of rivaling Michigan and Ohio State fans without the basis of success.
Yeah.
And I
could you imagine if these two teams did play every year?
Right. I mean, even if they did play every year, IU's not good every year. That's the thing. I think IU fans were actually less obnoxious when they sucked. That's the thing. Like they were
just waiting. They were just waiting.
And now you would think that they're the ones with the 11 national championships and all the historical success and and all of these different things. It's like, it really is a situation where, pretend like you've been there before.
Right.
Well, you know what I mean?
They haven't. So they have nothing to base it on.
Pretend.
Yeah.
I mean, it has gotten to a point that is just outlandish. And I'm very happy that I will not be tailgating for an extended period of time. And I'm not sitting in the stands because it's bad.
Concur. Could not agree more. Could not. And I told you. Hate to say I told you. And of course, not everyone is like that. There's some.
Of course not. And there's plenty of obnoxious Notre Dame fans too.
Right.
Don't get me wrong.
I mean, there are plenty of obnoxious fans in any fan base.
Of course.
So let's just put it that way. But just the experience that I've had with IU and success, like you don't stop hearing about it when it's them.
It is fascinating in a not great way. It's one thing to feel like you're a really good team and successful for a long period of time if you've got some swagger about you, but it's just like these guys just don't know what it feels like to be good, and they don't know what to do with themselves except be obnoxious. They can't win. This is one game they cannot. You cannot win this game. I mean, you think it was bad listening to Michigan fans over the last year or Ohio State fans if you live in Columbus or whatever. I get it, but can you imagine what we're going to have to listen to if IU wins this game, Sean? because we're surrounded by IU fans.
I know.
Closet IU fans.
And look, that's why I still think, like,
man,
I think there's going to be a good presence in that stadium tomorrow night. Like, will the majority still be Notre Dame? Yeah, I do believe that. But I think there's going to be a good Indiana Hoosier presence Friday night.
I just think that they'll be decimated by third quarter. So we'll see.
And it won't matter.
It won't. It won't. It'll be loud at the beginning, but yeah.
You're far more optimistic on how you think this thing is going to play out.
I'm extremely optimistic because I think my hatred is growing and my
see, there you go. You're letting your emotion drive your decision
100%.
again. Tell me this: when was the last time you were this optimistic about how you thought it was going to play out, and did it work out in that instance?
And did not work out?
No, and did it work out? When you were, however, against a quote unquote good opponent.
To be honest with you, both service academies.
Okay.
I never ever once for a second thought that Notre Dame was going to lose to either one of those teams. Not once. So, and that worked out pretty well.
Yeah, that's fair. Plenty of people picked against Notre Dame in both instances.
And that's the most recent. And look, those teams are good. It's just they couldn't hold a candle like from a personnel standpoint.
Yeah.
That's what hurt them, right? And I'm not saying you can't hold a candle to Notre Dame. They can. They are a successful team. They are a good team this year. But I still think that there is a drop-off from Notre Dame's talent to IU's talent. But they're going to have to exploit that difference in order to win the game, because a well-coached team like IU can overcome that. No doubt about it. But I think people are forgetting, like, IU is so well-coached and they're going to have their guys ready. And Notre Dame's really well-coached too. And they also have dudes. That's the difference for me.
And that's exactly right. And I don't know if this is just because of the connection that Nick Saban has with Cignetti, but I saw him talking today and he's like, well, Notre Dame really hasn't, blown a lot of people out this year. And I'm like,
what is he talking? See,
what games did you watch, Nick Saban? Like, did you only watch the USC game? Because other people have made drawn a lot of conclusions about Notre Dame just because of the USC game. But I mean, literally, did you watch?
Is that what Saban said? He said they haven't blown many people out.
Yeah, that they haven't blown. Wow. They haven't really blown people out this year.
Okay.
I know.
That's that first of all, we kind of talked about this at the beginning of the year and about, Saban being on game day and all those things. Look, man, he's just not doing his homework on this one. You got 12 teams to cover right now. That's it. You got 12. And you haven't watched any Notre Dame games and watched them blow people out? Like, come on, man. Like, I have the utmost respect for Nick Saban as a football coach. The utmost respect. But he's not doing his homework.
There you go, Salty. He did. That's where I saw it, actually. Thank you for reminding me on McAfee's show today.
Nick.
Yep.
Come on.
He did. In or out, this is the biggest bowl game of Marcus Freeman's young career as a head coach. He hasn't forgotten the collapse in the Fiesta Bowl as his first head coach game and has used that as he prepares for another, quote, first.
I agree with the fact that it's the biggest bowl game right now. I don't agree with the other stuff about the Fiesta Bowl and how it fuels his fire. No, he didn't give a crap about the Fiesta Bowl. He was evaluating his coaching staff, and that's why they lost that game.
Evaluating his coaching staff, and there were deficiencies that had to be overcome in that game.
Right.
Like as the interim, well, not interim. He was full-time.
He was the full head coach
by then, but
that wasn't his.
He didn't build that team. It was like he had what he had at that point. So I don't pin that.
No,
on him.
No.
But is this the biggest bowl? Of course it is.
100%. 100%. Last year's bowl game didn't mean anything. I mean, outside of the fact that you just wanted to win, right? But yes, this is by far the biggest. You're hosting. It's a playoff game. It's win or lose and go home. Like, this is absolutely the biggest, and it's not close.
Agree with that. In or out. 2 or more touchdowns for the tight ends.
I don't think they're going to get 2. 1, yes. 2, no.
This is tough for me because I think that they're going to be a pretty good factor in this game. But I think I'll have to go out on the 2 because you've still got Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price and Riley Leonard. There's only so many touchdowns to go around. So
and I do think points are going to be at a bit of a premium because of the weather and just because of all of the things, right? So, I think in my prediction that got posted today, I said something along the lines of I think Riley Leonard is going to account for 3 touchdowns. I think probably 2 in the air, 1 on the ground, kind of a deal. I think 1 will go to a tight end, 1 will either go to a wide receiver or a running back. And then I think Jeremiah Love gets in the end zone as well. So that's 4. That's why I have 28 points. So I just don't know that there's enough to go around.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. In or out, 3 or more picks for Notre Dame. I am out on this because, again, I mean, the guy's only thrown 4 all season.
Yeah, that's a lot. He's not going to double up, in one game. So yeah. I realize 3 is not
unless they're chasing points at the end and, crazy stuff happens. And, but again, that's like scenario that, like, how you going to predict that? Notre Dame converts at least 60% on 3rd down. Are you in or out on that?
I'd love to be in on this. I'm going to just to be optimistic. But that's been their bugaboo offensively is 3rd down. So I don't know what the season average is, Sean, but
it's less than 40%.
That's what
on 3rd down. So I've got to be out. Like if you went 3rd and 4th downs combined, they at least get closer to that. But I've got to be out because it's still a good defense that they're.
How about this? If they're 60% on 3rd down, they win the game.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, that's going to be one of those stats that you can look back on. Turnover ratio, 3rd down percentage.
Yep. In or out on Bryce Young with a block punt?
With the emphasis that IU is going to put on the special teams because of how bad they were against Ohio State, I just feel like they are going to account for 30. So I'm going to be out on this one. I would be out in every game where it says somebody specific will block a punt because it's just not a thing that happens all the time. But I think there's going to be a special emphasis on protecting the football for IU on the special teams.
Yeah. They're going to be very, very mindful.
Yes.
Of Bryce Young, but could be a physical mismatch that he's able to win too.
Absolutely. So. But if you listen to Signetti talk, I mean, basically the reason they lost to Ohio State, according to him, was they were terrible on special teams and they couldn't handle the crowd noise. And so they're going to put extra emphasis on special teams and
that's noise. Interesting too. He said he's never going to go with the silent count again. So crowd noise, that's bold. If you're Notre Dame fans, you obviously need to let them hear it, out there when that offense is on the field, because they're going to go with the clap counts because he doesn't want to go silent count, apparently, either that or, just, leg kick or whatever, but they're going to have to figure some things out. So
it's a bold move, Cotton.
Yes, it is. And, look, it's one thing to say you're going to be better on special teams. And obviously special teams did play, but Notre Dame is the best special teams team in the nation. And, so you can look at some things and feel like, maybe, you're a little bit more secure in some things, but at the end of the day, you're not just going to get better in a span of 3 weeks because you say you're going to get better, I'm really curious. I think we're going to see at least a play on special teams. That's going to be a big factor.
Sure. I do agree with that. I'm in on that one. If you want to write that one, I'm in. I do. I think special teams will help to solve this game. Yeah, for sure.
Tom, safe travels, my friend. Smoke those cigarettes. In or out, watching we in, we out will make the game last at least 1 hour closer. We'll make the game at least 1 hour closer. Of course.
I'm willing to do whatever it takes to kind of make the time go by a little bit faster. You know what I mean? So, I'm definitely in on all of that.
By the way, where was it? Someone was asking about, I think it was 70% or something. Notre Dame converts 76% on 4th downs.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. So
they're good on 4th down.
So that's why I said, if you combine 3rd and 4th, I might be closer, but they're really good on 4th down. Now, obviously the distance down into, the distance is shorter and all that kind of stuff. Vince, are you ready for some rapid fire?
Sean, it's the only thing I'm here for. So let's hit some rapid fire, baby.
Was literally brought in out of the bullpen to do rapid fire tonight.
You got a really complicated question later on rapid fire, by the way, which I really should have looked at earlier.
Wondering which one it is. Okay.
You're asking me to rank people, dude.
Oh, well, you don't have to rank the whole
Well,
thing. But
okay.
okay, so the uniform crisis, Vince,
Oh my
has been
God.
averted. Are you happy with what Notre Dame is going to wear Friday night against Indiana?
No, I'm
Oh.
ecstatic.
Oh, okay.
I think that they took, the classic Notre Dame look, which is what they should have been wearing in this magnitude of a game, in this historic game, in this historic venue, this historic, I can use the word historic about everything that I'm saying. Okay. They took that uniform and they just made it better, like with the gold accents and the gold names on the back and the little emblem that they got on the neck, on all of those different things. I put on Twitter, like, you just need to when this game is over, you need to take those uniforms and take them straight to the College Football Hall of Fame. Like it's the perfect uniform. I think they got the pants right. It appears right.
Looks like real gold pants, and not the mustard.
The uniforms with the gold accents.
Yep.
And then the helmet. Just pack it all up, send it down to Atlanta. Like, that's where they need to go. When I saw that on Twitter, I was ecstatic about the uniforms. Absolutely ecstatic.
I think they look great. They're like pretty much a classic, like, bowl game kind of look for Notre Dame. And, like with the names on the back, they go to the names on the back for the postseason and all that. They look great, especially since it does look like they're ditching the mustard pants for actual gold pants, which is something that a lot of people have been calling for a long time. They look really good. These are what you would expect a Notre Dame uniform to look like on a massive stage in the first ever college football playoff game on anyone's home campus, like in anyone's home stadium. We had someone on the YouTube comments last night say, "Oh, you guys need to get off the, changes in the uniforms, quit being old stodgy, crusty and whatever else." Look, like, I'm not against alternate uniforms.
Yeah,
I think that alternate uniforms, in the right time and place are good. Don't forget, green is an alternate uniform. I would have been for green, in this game Friday, since it's a Notre Dame game. But like the black specifically, because of everything, like the big picture, this is still the first playoff game that Notre Dame will ever host, that anyone will ever host. And I just don't think that going to a black jersey in that instance would have been the way to go.
Completely agree with you. And I am not against alternate jerseys. In fact, I like a lot of the stuff that Notre Dame throws out there for their alternate jerseys. I like the fact that they, brought out.
I like the Shamrock series.
I did. I really like those. I like the white pants with the blue jerseys when they were down at Atlanta. They are willing to kind of mix some things up a little bit. And I think that is thinking outside the box. And I like it. But at the same time, when you're in a game like this, you've got to you've got to be who you are. And this is who Notre Dame is. That's where I'm at with this whole thing. You know what I mean? So I'm all in on it. I love them.
I agree with what Outbound is saying. Looks like the 88 uniforms with a modern twist. It does a little bit.
Yeah.
Remember, they wore kind of the retro looking 88. Fill in the blank. This season would have been blank if Notre Dame didn't make it to the college football playoff.
Complete disappointment. Utter disappointment if that would have happened. And I realized they were one loss away from making that a reality, but that would have been a disappointment with the team that we thought that Notre Dame had. Yes, they had to deal with some injuries and some things like that. I get all of that, but it still would have been a disappointment because we were talking about how deep this team is, how talented this team is. They were poised to make a run, all of those different things. I just think that if they didn't make the playoff, it's a complete and utter disappointment.
We're not far off. I would have said my answer is complete failure. It would have been a complete failure with the schedule that they went up against, because that's still the biggest knock, against Notre Dame, is the fact that they did play, for group of 5 teams, along the way to get to where they are right now. And they didn't have the toughest strength of schedule. They didn't have the worst strength of schedule of anyone in the playoff field, but they didn't have the toughest strength of schedule. And going up against that with everything that they put into this in, year 3 for Marcus Freeman, it would have been a total failure. But, fortunately that didn't happen. Here they are hosting, so. You don't have to worry about that.
Absolutely.
Irish for Life 99 said, what about the midriff of the 88 uniforms? Could you imagine like Riley Mills, like with the Chris Zorich look?
That would have been hilarious.
Like with the 80s cutoff,
shirt.
Did you ever wear like the half shirts when you were growing up in the 80s? Like,
no, that wasn't me. And I, a little
bit before your time.
Well, yeah, it was a little bit before my time because
high tube 80s, socks.
I did have those. I had the high tube socks. There's no doubt about that. Like in the 80s, I was single digits the whole way. You know what I mean? So I never really had the high school look.
Gotcha.
By the time I got to high school, the uniforms were all the way down. So, but it wasn't. Here's the thing, though. Right before I got to high school, so like early 90s. The high school I went to had the older jerseys with like the bigger holes, you know what I mean? And the midriff, because those became our practice jerseys when I got to high school because they got new ones. And so I was just behind the trend of the cutoffs. I wore them to practice every day, but that's not what we wore on game day.
Yeah. We had they were like, I think kind of like what you're talking about, like total mesh.
Yes.
For the practice jerseys.
Yeah.
So like, especially when it got cold outside, because like our game jerseys were like 10 times as thick, it felt like, as opposed to the practice jerseys. So you were like wearing hooded sweatshirts and everything else, underneath, because there was like nothing to block the wind at all with those practice jerseys that we had with all that mesh. But
right.
I remember I've like seen some old pictures, where I've got like the cutoff, like the half shirt, stuff like that.
Oh, yeah, I could see that.
Cool 70s and 80s, baby. That's right.
Yeah, man. Rock and roll.
Fill in the blank. A successful Irish postseason is blank.
See, this is such a hard question to ask because we're right in the middle of it. And like any loss that Notre Dame has over the next 4 games is going to be devastating. Like it's going to be disappointing. Like that's where I'm at. Like the post-game show, if and when Notre Dame loses, is going to be depressing and devastating. So I got to take the macro look. I got to try to take the 1,000-foot view of the whole thing. So I think a successful postseason is winning 2 games. I think winning 2 games, getting to the Final Four, I think you can look back on that as a successful run. I hope it's better than that. Like, you know what I mean? I like I said, in the moment, I would be devastated if that happens, even if they win 2 and lose the 3rd, like I would still be devastated. But, a month from now or 2 months from now, when I'm looking back on it, they win 2 games. That means they won a home game, obviously, and that means they beat Georgia. I think you can look back and be like, you know what? That was a pretty successful year, because I think a lot of people are still looking towards next year as being kind of a year they make a run. So I think 2 games.
Yeah, I think a successful one is one that definitely starts with a win tomorrow night. You've got to win that. And I'm not saying, like then if you lose to Georgia, kumbaya, and it's still like you have to win tomorrow night.
Yeah,
though, is what it comes down to me. But like you, I do think that ultimately 2 wins is very realistic for this team, and like to put themselves in a different stratosphere than they've been in these situations before. I do feel like now you can already, and I don't want to have like the straw man argument before any of this stuff is even started. There will be people who say, well, if Carson Beck, wasn't playing, who did you really, all that, but you would still have a win over the SEC champion, right? Like the undisputed SEC champion, because Georgia beat Texas twice during the regular season, even though they lost a couple of games. So like if you're Notre Dame, you would have beaten a good Big Ten team at home to start off. Then you would have a win over the SEC champ in the second round. I think that would be an ultra successful season. So yeah, I agree with what you're saying, but it definitely starts with a win tomorrow night. Tomorrow night.
We're both in agreement on that one. And I will also say, I agree. I think it was Joe that said it. If you win the first 2, then obviously, who was it that said? I'm sorry. It was Irish Gordian Knot, excuse me. He said, but if they win 2, the 3rd would be BSU, PSU, or SMU, and losing to one of those would be a huge disappointment after beating Georgia. Too. So I don't disagree with that. I'm saying,
so it's almost like getting to the championship if you're going to look at it that way, right?
And I agree with you, Irish. I really do, because I think any other time, like if we're talking about faceless opponents, winning 2 games in the playoff is huge, right? I think that's a success.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right. If they win 2, then they have one of those 3. They should beat every one of those teams. So it would be a huge disappointment. I agree with you. But I think looking back, you're like, okay, well, they won 2 games, one of which was Georgia. Success. But man, would I be disappointed if they lose to one of those 3. I'm with you. I'm with you.
For sure. So ESPN ranked the top 50 players who are playing in the college football playoff this year. It's blank that Arizona State running back Cam Skattebo is number 3 on this list, and Jeremiah Love is Notre Dame's top player at number 11.
Oh my gosh. Hilarious is the answer, because no one in the country outside of the state of Arizona knew who Cam Skattebo was before last week. I'm sorry, they didn't. And if you're saying that you did, you're a liar. You're a liar. And all of a sudden, he's the 3rd best player in the playoffs.
Right.
Give me a freaking break. Give me a break. Like, that is one of the worst. All I know is what you just told me, that he's 3 and Jeremiah Love is 11. That is hilarious. It is recency bias up the wazoo. And after tomorrow night, they're going to want to reshuffle that.
Look, if you had Barney Rubble and the Flash running a race against each other, would you pick Barney Rubble or would you pick the Flash?
I mean,
like, that's what this is. I'm sorry. Like, Skattebo is this cartoon figure who's like, people just love the rumbling, bumbling, stumbling guy. That's what he is. Like one of these guys is going to still be playing in the NFL 10 years from now. The other guy, not so much. Like it's not like there were a couple things that flashed in my head. I didn't want to be mean.
I know. Cam's not watching, and neither any of his family members. But I get what you're saying.
He's still a really good college football player.
Sure.
But in no universe is Cam Skattebo better than Jeremiah Love. I'm sorry. And like, just, if you like going back to the Ashton Genty stuff, like if Jeremiah Love had Cam Skattebo's carries, like the numbers would just be insane in Jeremiah Love's favor. Like the only reason you could rank him lower is because he hasn't had to be, the workhorse type guy.
Right.
That Skattebo is.
Which is what he wants, by the way, I mean, it's
not only what he wants, it makes sense for this team because, like who's going to have fresh legs going into it? Now, obviously, Jeremiah tweaked his knee a little bit, but like Price and Love both have breakaway speed. Like that's what wins at this time of year. I'm sorry, like grind it out, oversized, churn it out. Running back is not going to carry the day in these playoffs. I'm sorry. Like it might win a game.
Correct.
But the ability to make explosive breakaway plays is what carries the day in these playoff matchups. And that's what Love and Price, but Love, because that's who we're talking about. That's what Love brings. So
I'm sorry. That is, you said it was by ESPN. Well, whoever contributed to that needs to have their credential revoked because that's just a comedy of errors. It's comedy of errors, man. I don't know what else to say. It's embarrassing.
I'm going to get into a couple of the questions here. Actually, I'll do Joe's first. In or out on Jeremiah Love having over 150 yards?
Total yards? I'm going to be out on that. I don't know that that's necessary for him to have 150, so I'm going to be out on it, but he's going to be dynamic when he needs to be dynamic. I just don't know that he's going to need to touch the ball enough times to have 150 total yards, so I'm going to be out on it.
One of those two guys is going to have at least a long run tomorrow night. I just don't think that like 150 for an individual, I don't like, especially I'll just limit it to rushing, because even Love as a receiver, like we haven't seen enough where, he's got this, multi-purpose, just huge numbers, type thing. So it's still going to be pretty tough for Notre Dame to come about some yards. They're not just going to run all over and around Indiana out there tomorrow night. So I'm going to be out on that. I still think he's going to have a good game, and like the three of those guys together are going to be a major factor. But individually, I'm going to be out. Michael Jordan Faison becomes the only Notre Dame athlete to be a dual sport national champion in a single year. In or out on that?
I mean, obviously, if we're in on it, that means Notre Dame's winning the national championship. That would be awesome. I don't want to be predicting that Notre Dame's going to win a national championship, so I'm just going to say out.
Yeah.
I don't want to go there.
Got to go out as well. But
I mean, technically, who's first, him or Tyler Buckner? Because they're both on.
True. They'd both get it at the same time.
Yeah.
Yes, Indiana does have the number one run defense in the nation. Make Notre Dame great again.
I don't think anybody said it was
have a
going to
great
be
schedule.
Nobody said it was going to be easy,
right,
for Notre Dame to run on Indiana. Okay, nobody's saying that. Do I think they're going to have success? Yes. So there's a difference between it being easy and having success. I also, when you look at the run offenses that they faced, I think two teams are above 91st in the country. The rest are 91st and higher or lower, depending on how you talk, 91st right. Or bigger, or whatever.
Or worse.
Yeah. Or thank you. Or worse. So they weren't exactly going up against juggernauts that can run the football. So yes, by stats, they have the number one rush defense in the country. There's no doubt about it. But when you're talking about a bunch of teams in the triple digits in rush offense, I think, you can have an intelligent conversation about it and still say, yes, they have a good run defense, but you can run against them.
Right. And that's why I don't think that Notre Dame will run all over Indiana. I think that at the end of the day, they will have what looks like a successful day running the ball, especially considering what Indiana has done against the run this year. But I'm not predicting that Notre Dame is going to have, close to its 250-yard average against
200.
Indiana. I think that would still be pushing. I think they'll be over 150, but how much over 150, I don't know. Because I still think that again, don't discount Riley Leonard in the passing game.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree with that. I think the rushing yards are going to be closer to 200 than they are to 150. So I'm not saying they're going to hit 200, but I think they'll be closer to 200 than they are to 150.
Okay.
And
that's how it goes. That's how it's gone in some of Notre Dame's games as well. It's it doesn't always look like it's, like this massive game. But then when you look at the stat line at the end, it's over 200 yards again.
Yeah, right. Exactly. That's the crazy part. And I do, yeah, I'll leave it at that. I think they will have success. And look, I believe they're averaging 85 yards a game or something like that against, right? It's something minuscule like that. I mean, Notre Dame will blitz that number, in my opinion.
What's that number again?
Was it 85 a game or something like that? What is
that Indiana's allowing?
Yeah.
70.8.
There you go. They're gonna that'll be halftime. They'll be past that.
Okay. So Riley Leonard was asked this week about the boos that he got earlier this season. Here's his response. Quote, "You really don't understand the magnitude of this place until you lose. I say that all the time. That's when I really felt like, oh, dang, there's a lot more magnitude that I hold and weight that I hold when I play the game than I expected. Those boos and stuff early, definitely didn't like them. Also remind myself that's 10% of the crowd. But when 10% of the crowd is booing, it's enough for me to hear it, and I kind of get pissed off. I guess it kind of motivated me and kicked me into gear. Whenever all that negativity was coming towards me, my phone was shut off. So I had no idea. I don't even know now. My phone is still shut off. So I could be the best quarterback or still hated. I don't even know. I think this offense as a whole obviously starts with me, the quarterback, the captain. If I can respond from adversity like that, it gives them confidence oh, snap. If he can respond from that, he can respond from anything. Anytime something goes bad in a game, I take a lot of pride in bouncing back because I've kind of done that this year." End quote. That's blank, Vince.
A well-reasoned response. I think he's got a little politician in him to a degree, but I also think he's being honest about it. He admitted he hears it, and he admitted that he deserved it. and he also admitted that it drove him to be better. I think that's a pretty mature way to handle a situation like that. You know what I mean? We've heard plenty of people when, you get talked about getting booed or whatever, and they immediately just go on the attack. That's not what home fans should do. All this other, we work hard. Like, he took it to heart, and he worked harder, and he got better. And, it is what it is. I think that was a very reasoned response.
Make Notre Dame Great Again says he shut off his phone for 11 weeks. It's like, how is he taking, phone calls? Is he, does he actually talk to his mom? Like, I'm sure he's talking about
social media.
Predominantly is what he's talking about. That's exactly right. And I love the fact, the pissed off part is what stood out the most to me. Like, because this guy, he is so easygoing and he is so aw shucks. I mean, you heard the, oh dang and aw snap. And, he talks about, going to, they're probably sitting over there right now. They might not be since the week is adjusted, but he's talked about going to Bible study and stuff like that on Thursday night. So he might be sitting over there doing his Bible study right now. I don't know. But like the fact that this motivated him and the fact that, he has been able, to tune this out and turn it into what he needed to turn into, I think that's what stands out the most, because there are a lot of guys who would, just kind of be the shrinking violets. And it's like, oh, I got booed at home. What am I going to do now? And kind of like what we were talking about with his teammates, reminding him in that Players Tribune thing that he did. It's like, look, you talk the talk, or you actually going to walk the walk. And I like the fact that he's walked the walk and backed it up as this season has gone on.
Yeah, 100%.
So Sean McDonough and Greg McElroy are calling the Notre Dame playoff game against Indiana for ESPN Friday night. If you had your choice of college football playoff booths, where does the McDonough-McElroy booth rank? I'm not asking you to rank all of these. These are the other
okay.
booths.
These are the options, is what you're saying.
These are the, most of these are calling games this weekend. Like
Gotcha.
Noah Eagle, Todd Blackledge, NBC, Dan Hicks, Jason Garrett do most of the home games for NBC. Nestler Danielson is the CBS crew. But then you've got Fowler Herbstreit calling Ohio State, Tennessee. Gus Johnson, Joel Klatter, obviously Fox. They're not calling games this weekend. Joe Tessitore, Jesse Palmer, Dave Pasch, Dusty Dvorak are doing Texas and Clemson. Mark Jones, Roddy Jones doing Penn State.
The Jones.
SMU. So, where would you put the McDonough-McElroy? Where would you rank them in this group of those are probably the top echelon of the college football booths.
Yeah, I would put them towards the top. I think I probably like, if you're, forcing me to choose here, I like the Eagle Blackledge duo. I actually do like those two guys. I think they do a pretty good job. Those are probably my two highest off the top of my head. I know this is going to sound terrible, but I'm glad I don't have to listen this week. So I get to listen to the commentary of Driscoll and Stiers. So right here. So I'm happy about that.
There's not a whole lot of conversation though going on in that.
Yeah,
booth.
there's not. But there's
Driscoll puts his headsets on, so he drowns everybody out.
Drowns us out.
Joe wants to know who the Dropping Dimes guy is. Do you know who that is? I'm not sure.
No idea.
Good question. He says Blackledge hates Notre Dame. I think people have warmed to McElroy because they perceive him to favor Notre Dame, for whatever reason. I think McDonough, to me, and I agree, Noah Eagle Blackledge, I do think that's a pretty good booth. I think Dan Hicks, who's started doing the Notre Dame home games this year, is a good play-by-play guy.
I just didn't like the combination. I'm not as down on Jason Garrett as everybody else.
I'm not either, but at the same time, he's still not one of my favorites.
Right.
Just because there's a lot of cardboard there. There's some good, there's some decent analysis, but I think there's just a lot of coach speak, that kind of comes with it. He's a little bit stiff still in year 3 or whatever it is. Right. I think McDonough's a really good play-by-play guy, though. Been listening to him for a long time. He's done a lot of big events. And I think that, you might remember he did Monday Night Football a few years back, and then they moved him out of that and they moved him back to college. And I think that that's been gold. To me, McDonough should be the number one ESPN play-by-play.
Gotcha.
guy, but he's not. So I would put him at the top. I think McElroy's getting better.
Yeah.
And I think it probably helps him that he's paired with, with
Yeah.
a veteran like McDonough.
It makes
So,
a difference when you're paired with a
it
good
does.
play-by-play
We've said that
guy.
before, haven't we?
Yes, we have. And
Yes, we have.
It's still true.
Yep. Okay. A few others here. Irish for Life 99. Tyler Buckner touches the ball tomorrow. You buy or sell that?
I feel like that I'm going to say I'm out, or I don't think so. I don't want to say that they've gone to the Tyler Buckner well too much, because I still think there's plenty that he can do and things like that, but I just think it would be too obvious.
I'm going to go in. I think at the very least he ends up being a holder, like on a field goal or something.
Really?
Maybe. Yeah.
I wouldn't even know though, because it's normally another 26.
See, and that's the thing, like if you're Indiana, it's got to drive you nuts. It's like, which 26 is that guy? Is that the guy who, is that Buckner?
Well, they got names on the back now.
Ah, that's true. I didn't even think about that. So now it's a giveaway.
Yeah.
So it's even harder now.
Right.
Ah.
Yeah, I just thought about that.
I hadn't thought about that. Good call. Good call. Irish for Life 99 wants to know if Jesse and I are going to be at the IB tailgate. I know Brian Brian's got to get out there and get set up and all that. We got to find out where it is, when it is.
Yeah.
I know Jesse's going to be out there before me too.
Oh, yeah.
So
they're going to be in the Joy slot. This is the information that I know. They're going to be in the Joy slot. Brian's planning on getting out there. At least the plan is about 1:00. But he's not going to know exactly where.
I won't be out there at 1.
No, God, no. I'll still be at work. But he won't know exactly where until he finds an open space. So I believe he's going to put it on Twitter. But then I think somebody's going to grab it from Twitter and put it on the board as to where he is. So Twitter and the board is where you can find out exactly where. But I was told he is going to be flying the IB flag at the tailgate. So that'll be kind of an obvious situation there. I'm going to stop by at some point. I would say not early, but I will be there at some point. But more likely 6:00 range is what I would say. But at the latest. So come on by.
Yeah, someone was asking. Chris Salerno is the regular holder. Buckner has been the guy that they have brought in. They both wear number 26. So here's my question. Given that names are on the jerseys now, and essentially you can't cause that confusion, and because the fact that you've had 2 weeks, do you just put Tyler Buckner on, make sure he's on the field on all those special teams units so they always have to be aware of him, so that now it's not okay, you're sneaking him on the field and they've got the binoculars and they're like, okay, it's Buckner,
right,
and not Salerno. Do you just have him on all the different units possible so that they have to account for him all the time?
I do not, because I don't trust Buckner blocking or tackling or any of those other things, to be perfectly honest with you. So I just
lose all element of surprise.
You do, and that's fine. I mean, it is what it is. There's other people that can throw the football on the football team. Jack Kaiser was a quarterback. He can throw the football. Plenty of guys can toss the rock if necessary. So, yeah.
Joe is asking what time the lots open. Gordian is saying 8. I have heard, now I don't have this.
I don't have it.
I had heard that they were waiting until noon to open the lots tomorrow. I haven't heard that that's official, but that's what I had heard, that noon is when they were opening up tomorrow because it's Friday.
I'm going to text a cop friend of mine and find out.
See if he can give you the answer.
No, he usually works the games, but he's not going to work the game tomorrow because he has to work.
Okay.
So we'll see if he responds.
Let me. We got a lot of information in this email that we got from Notre Dame.
The one today?
But it's mostly media.
It's just parking and stuff like that.
No, I know, but that's why,
I skimmed it.
I'm sure you did. But I was just looking to see if it said anything about what time the lots actually open, since there's all this other information in there.
Gotcha.
But I'm kind of skimming it as well. because
they don't usually tell us that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know if I think there's
they don't anticipate us out there tailgating all day.
Correct. In fact, they told us
usually don't. So
don't bring your cameras to tailgate. You see that?
Don't bring your cameras to tailgate.
Well, like we can't record anything like as a news outlet in tailgating land. Not allowed.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So like any just average fan can record stuff, but media people can't.
There's a specific spot set up between where we go into the stadium and where we get our credentials for stand-up. Like if you want to interview somebody from a tailgate, you got to bring them over to that spot. That's what it said in the email.
Okay. I mean, I'd looked through most of it. I guess I didn't see that part. So, okay, let's kind of some player props here real quick. Riley Leonard has a passing number of 181.5, a rushing total of 52.5. Are you confident in the overs on either of those, neither of those, or both of those?
Oh boy.
I like the over on the rushing total. I'm not confident in any passing total number with Leonard. We've been burned too many times.
Yeah, I think his line is going to be something along the lines of like 60 yards on the ground, about 200 through the air, and responsible for 3 touchdowns. That's what I said. That's my prediction. So I guess I've got to take over on both of them, but I'm the most confident in the rushing.
Me too.
Yeah.
I think 160 is my confidence number for Leonard's passing. Yes, Joe, you can basically Facebook Live anything you want out there, but because we're media, apparently we're not allowed to.
So. My cop friend said 8 a.m.
Okay, 8 a.m. it is.
There you go.
Good deal. You got it. Curtis Rourke, the Indiana quarterback, 198.5 passing yards is his number.
I think it's going to be over that for a myriad of reasons. Number one, I think he's a good quarterback. But number two, I think he's going to be throwing the ball a lot in the second half. So I'm going to take the over.
He's only gone under 3 times this year. One of them was against Florida International. And it's just because of the way they run their offense, and especially if Notre Dame does have the lead late in the game, I think that he will end up over 200 yards. I think that's a fairly safe bet, unless the weather just turns into a disaster, which again, like as of right now,
it's not looking that way.
It's just supposed to be cold. It's not, and it's not supposed to be like cold, just cold, just average
like for us
degree type cold.
No big deal. Like it's going to be, it'll be in the mid 20s, I think, throughout most of the game. But like, I don't think it's supposed to snow during the day, but I don't think it's supposed to snow during the game. So I don't think that's going to have a whole lot of effect on the gameplay either.
Jeremiah Love, 86.5 rushing yards, 11.5 receiving yards. Either, neither, both.
I'm definitely taking the over on the receiving yards. I think that's a gimme. I mean, I'm fairly confident in the rushing yards, but I still don't think I would touch it. I don't know. That seems like a bit of a high number. If it was in the 60s or 70s, I would take the over. So I'm going to sit on the receiving yards.
Well, and even the receiving yards, it's like so hit and miss. Like there's a string of like more than half the games this year, he's only had 1 catch for, like single digit yardage. But then like the USC game, they decided, hey, we can use him as a receiver. And he had almost 40 yards on 3 catches. So I'm confident. I'm more confident in the rushing yards than the receiving yards, even as low as the receiving yards are. So,
okay,
86.5 rushing yards, pretty confident in that. Jadarian Price, 36.5 rushing yards.
Oh my God. Pound the over on that.
Total over.
Holy crap on a stick. Yeah, you pound that over. No doubt.
So let's see. If Leonard goes over 52.5, Love goes over 86.5, and Price goes over 36.5. Like you're sitting there at around 160 yards just with like minimal overs.
Yeah,
all 3 of those.
That's a good point. Look at you with the math. I'm impressed.
Check out the big brain on Brad. That's right. Jordan Faison, over under 24.5 receiving yards. I like this over.
I'm taking the over. I
like
think
this
that
over.
he is trending towards being one of Riley Leonard's more favorite targets. So I like the over.
I like him in this matchup specifically.
Okay.
Like out of that slot, and again, against like if Indiana's going to play all that zone defense they like to play, I like this for Jordan Faison. And I also like over 28.5 for Mitchell Evans, which is his number. You like the over on that?
I like the over on everyone that you're about to say. So yes.
Bo Collins 26.5.
Yeah. I know what you're going to say.
But
I am riding the Bo Collins train on this one simply from he's been here before. He knows what it takes to win a big game. And I just think that he's going to show up, man. I just feel like he's going to show. I'm not saying he's going to have like 100 yards and 2 scores or anything like that. He's going to have a big catch in this game. He's going to have a chain mover in an important part of this game. He's going to show up. This is why you brought Bo Collins to Notre Dame, these kind of games.
You sold me, Vince. You convinced me. Yes. Good sales job. All right. Okay. I'm in. Love it. Elijah Surratt, the IU receiver, 54.5.
Look, if Benjamin Morrison was in this game, I would take the under because he just dominates the best player on the other team. That's nothing against the two guys that are lining up for Notre Dame.
Yeah.
But I just think the kid's going to get his, whatever that is, between the 20s, he's going to get some. So I'm going to take the over there as well.
Yeah. I mean, he's like 49 receptions, not a huge number, but it's a very respectable number. I mean, it's bigger than any number than anybody for Notre Dame has. They throw to him almost twice as much as anybody else on the team. So, again, for like the way they operate their offense, I've got to go over on him. Interesting little prop that I saw on the FanDuel app today.
Wild.
Plus 25,000 odds for neither team to score a touchdown. I don't think it's going to happen, but like considering how good both of these defenses are, like I threw $5 at it, and I'll win like over $1,200 if it somehow, ends up being a field goal game tomorrow night. So I was like, why not? Why not?
I mean, if that happens, Notre Dame loses, in my opinion. So you might be in the money, but you're going to be a pretty depressed Joe.
Joe Papiti?
Yeah, right.
By the way, Joe wants to know, like Joe has apparently never been to South Bend in December or January. So he says, does it get Chicago cold there? Like you have to go get a coat out. I mean,
Chicago's 2 hours away, man. Yeah. Like it's the same weather.
Like we are, like where we are, even though we're what, 40, 50 miles from Lake Michigan. Like we're still close in it because we get lake effect snow here all the time. And you still, when that wind is blowing, man, like you're getting Lake Michigan cold weather over here.
We get more snow than Chicago does because of that lake effect.
Because of it. Yeah, we
get way more snow. Now, it gets obviously very cold in Chicago because of the wind and all of that, but we get that here. So yeah, it's the same, man. Like if you don't come properly prepared tomorrow night,
especially at night,
real cold.
Like you need some layers out there tomorrow night.
It's going to be real
because
cold.
the stadium is what now, again, like we've never done this in December, but typically, like in November when it's getting colder, there's a lot more moisture in the air. And when you're in that stadium, it feels colder.
Yeah.
Especially the lower you are down, because of like just the dampness and stuff that's typically in the air. So
yeah, it's going to be cold tomorrow. So, if people are coming to the game, man, make sure you layer up. I was just looking at the weather app and it appears that at kickoff, it's going to be 28 degrees and 11 o'clock is probably what we'll say when it's going to end. It's going to be 23. So it's going to be chilly.
Boogie.
Going to be chilly. And the feels like is 17 at kickoff and 17 at the end of the game. So cold.
What are our thoughts on Freeman saying that Pete and he are essentially dedicated to doing what it takes to win a championship? What do you think he's referring to? I think it was Pete that said that. Pete
It was.
Bavacqua said that they are maniacally, was it dedicated or devoted to winning a championship or more? I did think like the or more, like and more, whatever that was. I thought that was interesting because does that just mean multiple championships? Like, because like what else is there beyond winning a championship?
Yeah, I mean, the saying that they're dedicated to doing whatever it takes. I mean, Shields Hall is under construction. It's going to be beautiful and awesome and everything, all of that, right? They're not afraid to pay for coaches. They're not afraid to pay for players under the right circumstances, not high school players, but, players that are actually doing what they're supposed to do. They're doing all the right things. They're not letting college football pass them by like they kind of used to back in the day. I think they're on the cutting edge of everything. I mean, they know what they're going to do with the revenue sharing. They know what they're going to do with roster sizes. Like, this is a very proactive group at Notre Dame now than it ever was in the past.
Yeah.
So that, I think, is what he means by they're willing to do whatever. Look, they're sinking money into the program. That's what everybody wants, right? They're sinking money into the program, that facility, coaching salaries, nutrition, uniforms, all of those different things. They're doing it. And I think that's what he means by it.
And I think the fact that you've got another domer like Bavacqua,
he's a fan
who's in charge. Yeah. Like, and he talked about that 1993 Notre Dame, Florida State environment. Like that's what he envisions for out there tomorrow night. But I think the fact that like, that's who you've got in charge, it means more to him than
Absolutely.
it'll obviously Jack Swarbrick was an alum as well, but I think that that's part of why things have advanced so much in these last, we're going on, around 15 years or so, I guess, since Swarbrick became athletic director. The fact that you do have a couple guys who went to school here, and it has just meant more to them. It meant more to Swarbrick and means more now to Bavacqua as well.
And it's across the board athletically. I mean, it is. You're seeing more national championships in other sports. You're seeing more competitiveness in other sports. You're seeing facility upgrades in other sports. Like it's across the board, but clearly football is the headliner, and they're pouring all kinds of money into football.
Joe says Pete understands Notre Dame's a money-making machine. I mean, he knows Notre Dame's
absolutely it is
machine, but he also talked about it with, like the NBC deal that, like keeping your TV partner, invested in you starts with the on-field product.
Absolutely.
So like, even though Notre Dame didn't get any big marquee, games as it turned out for NBC this year, the fact that Notre Dame is successful, that just drives more interest going forward, keeps them invested in the whole thing. And that's where, independence starts with that TV contract. So
no doubt.
Final one from Clontarf. Is that what that is? Clontarf?
Yeah.
How good do you think this offensive line is? He says it seems a bit tough to judge.
They've gotten a lot better as the season has progressed. They got a lot better when Billy Schrouth was inserted into the lineup. I think they have gone from a suspect offensive line with a lot of injuries to a very solid to semi-great. Right? I'm not going to say they're elite because they're not, right? But they're on the verge of great. And it helps to have the guys behind them that are running the football, because the holes don't have to be massive. But I do think that this offensive line has just gotten markedly better week after week after week. And to a man, each individual guy has gotten better week after week after week. And they're starting to work really, really, really well together. And that's what you want. Like, I don't need everybody to be a road grader. I just need everybody to just put a hat on a hat and give me a crease. Like, give Jeremiah.
That's all you need.
That's it.
Because Price and Love are both great after contact. Like, they're both still, getting some contact. But that's exactly right. All you need is that crease. You just got to give them a little bit of daylight, and they can do the rest.
Exactly.
Like I said a few weeks back, I felt like it has become an underrated group because of where they started off. But like, there's been a lot less true critiquing / criticism of this offensive line over the last month. No coincidence that with Schrouth at left guard and Spindler at right guard, that has been a big part of it. But, again, because of like Schrouth, we haven't been talking about a bunch of Anthony Knapp mistakes since Schrouth has been in there, right?
They work really well together. I mean, they just do, which is why when we talked about, Charles Jagasaw and all that kind of stuff, like I'm good with where things are at right now because I feel like it's a very, very good working relationship on the left side.
Yeah. Tomorrow's going to be a good test for him, but
for sure.
I think that they're up for the matchup, because just like it's going to be a good test for them. I think that Notre Dame's offensive line is better than Ohio State's offensive line, as an example.
I agree.
And Indiana had its handful with Ohio State's offensive line.
Yep.
So.
Yep.
And I think it's probably better than Michigan's offensive line
as well.
With that as well. Again, they had their hands full there as well. So, All right, great stuff tonight.
So our last.
How do we get through? How do we get through the next 25 hours, Vince?
It's not going to be easy. I'm going to tell you how I'm going to start. I'm going to Culver's to get some dinner. That's where I'm starting.
There you go. I thought you were going to say ice cream, but
it comes at the end. I mean, I get a kid's meal. Comes with free cup ice cream. Come on.
What do you get at Culver's? You go cheeseburger. You go
cheeseburger fries. It's kids meal. Cheeseburger fries.
Okay,
and then it comes with some ice cream. So
you're literally going with the kids meal. All right.
I can't afford a regular meal, Sean. Come on.
I don't blame you. You got 8 million kids in that house, and Christmas is next week. So.
And they're all, exactly. You nailed it, man. You 100% nailed it. So Jack wants to know if my kid's going to be there. Yes, he is going to be there. He's very excited about it.
All right. Yeah, so we'll be out there. Once Brian figures out where he is, we'll be out there at some point. Like I said, I don't have like the hunting pullovers and all that stuff to bundle up in.
Which is why I'm not going to be out there as long as other people.
But. That's right. I'm not tolerant like that. But
me neither.
We'll be out there at some point. Ooh, cheese curds and a tenderloin. Now you're singing my tune there.
Just saying. Oh, Joe's in a great mood. Love it, Joe. Thank you.
Joe, thank you for slipping that super chat in before we wrap it up. All right.
I'm excited to meet Joe. I'm excited to meet everybody, but I hope I get to see Joe. Yep. I want to see Joe with a smile on his face.
Hey, don't forget, Monday is December 23rd, and December 23rd is Festivus in IB Nation land, of course, in Seinfeld land, if you're familiar with that. So, the bulk of our show will be talking about whatever happens tomorrow night, like the first part of the show. Yes. But Rapid Fire is going to be the airing of grievances. So we've got all weekend to come up with our grievances for Monday. Hopefully we don't have too many originating tomorrow night.
Great call.
But airing of grievances in Rapid Fire on Monday, because it is, the comments are flying in now, a Festivus for the rest of us. Yes.
Hey, listen, I believe Jesse's going to be in your house. Yes? Or is he going to be back home by then?
Monday. I think he's leaving Monday. So, yeah.
Man. Okay. Because what I was going to say was the feats of strength is usually father and son. Right. So I was thinking we could do like a live stream.
Oh, man. I don't need to hurt myself.
I'll just get my kid down here. You can kick my butt.
All right. I wish I had a big aluminum pole I could just march into the press box with tomorrow night. All right. Well, that's going to do it. Hit that like button before you leave. Enjoy the game tomorrow night. Stay warm. Stay safe. Safe travels if you're coming in for the game. It sounds like a lot of people are. So let's have fun. Brian and Vince and Trevor and Sean and whoever else will be up late tomorrow night with the post-game show, and then we will talk to you on Monday. A lot of football over the next few days. Hit the like button. We'll talk to you later. IB Nation Sports Talk.